So yeah, Saints on tour today.
Now, Joe, Dean and Paul gave us their verdicts on the defeat to Bournemouth the other night. It felt like a pivotal night in our season, and Paul described it as a fatal blow for Southampton's survival hopes. How do you reflect on that match?
Yeah, tough to disagree with any of that. Obviously, I think that was the game we all kind of circled on the calendar. That was the one Southampton had to win to really give themselves a great opportunity of staying up. It's still possible, but now it's more hoping for miracles a little bit and then hoping other teams slip up around them. But there's still a chance. But I think the defeat to Bournemouth, the manner of it, the performance was just a bit flat. And then Bournemouth, obviously, they've improved in recent weeks. They're a very solid team. But I think it was, compounded with the late equaliser for Shay Adams that was ruled out, and just it kind of summed up the whole season in a 90-minute period. I think for Saints it was just being not efficient in front of goal, not taking chances when they came, and then making some big mistakes and being punished for that. And I think that's 12 games this season they've lost by a 1-goal margin in the Premier League. So again, I spoke to Theo Walcott after the recent draw at Arsenal, and he said, there's a team in there. There is a team in there. We just need to try and figure out how to win games, and just haven't been able to do it often enough this season. So yeah, in a nutshell, that defeat against Bournemouth summed up the season for Saints and summed up where they are right now. And this offside call, obviously very disappointing. A point would have been a positive at that point of the game, but still probably not quite enough for what Saints need right now.
Yeah, Joe just alluded to it there, Dean, but it does feel like those fine margins are starting to, or have proved rather costly. I mean, that was the 10th time this season that the Saints have lost 1-0. Can you please talk us through that goal that we conceded?
Yeah, it was bad timing, to be honest, Kenzie. It was the beginning of the second half. Bournemouth had probably had the better of the first half. The Southampton started slowly, and it's just giving away possession from a throw-on. Lavia then tries to gamble to try and win the ball from the front, and Bournemouth build a counter-attack from that, really. And then it's just a lack of, I would say, intensity of trying to close the ball down. Shalesh Jassar gets the Bournemouth player in a good position. He's going down on the outside. He's very much left-footed. He allows him then to come back inside, which positioning wise, it's not too bad because there's a lot of Southampton players. Southampton actually recovered to a really, really good shape. But then it's a matter of getting pressure on the ball. Alcaraz there kind of half attempts to try and block the ball and almost runs past the ball. And then Maitland-Niles is there, but kind of is waiting, doesn't really want to commit to try and close the ball down. Again, that's a disappointment. You break it down again. Lavia then, when he's trying to block the ball, turns his back and doesn't front it up, so he can't get a real block on it. And then it's a soft finish. I think it goes past Bednarek's foot. Whether McCarthy's unsighted or not, we were there at the game, and it looked like it was a really slow finish. It kind of drifted into the far post. There was no real conviction or power in the strike, and it was just a really disappointing moment because it could have been prevented. And I think that's the frustration always. It could be prevented by a little bit more effort, I think, individually, taking that responsibility of I'm going to prevent this goal. I'm going to win the ball back for my team. I'm going to do it at intensity. It was kind of just all a little bit laboured. I think that was the word, and that maybe summed up the performance for the first hour, 70 minutes of the game. A little bit laboured, a little bit flat, like Joe's just mentioned. And that's really what happened in the goal. So it's those individual errors that we've talked about all season. Southampton giving possession away, gambling, not staying safe side, recovering to a good position, and then individual players not defending with more intensity. And it's been a problem.
All right, well, let's shift the focus back to today's match then, shall we? Around 10 minutes to go until we can bring you the team news. But let's talk about what we know already. The availability of our captain, James Ward-Prowse, is still unknown. Of course, he came off at half-time through illness on Thursday. We understand, though, that Armel Bella-Kotchap is available after missing that defeat to Bournemouth.
Yeah, Joe, with that, there could be maybe a change or two today. What kind of lineup would you like to see?
Yeah, I think obviously if Bella Kotchap is available, Steve comes straight back in. I think he's been excellent, and he's kind of the player that drive Saints on from the back and has a lot of belief. Again, spoke to him after the Arsenal game and he said, we can still do this, so we can still get out of trouble. So I feel like even as a very young player, he's a leader back there, and his recovery speed and reading of the game is excellent. So we'll love to see him come back in. And then if Ward-Prowse is unavailable, love to see a slightly more attack-minded replacement for him. Maybe a Stuart Armstrong going into midfield, or Joe Aribo starting alongside Lavia in one of those deeper roles, and then being able to get on the ball, keep it, and get Saints on the front foot. I think at this point, just have to be positive. Just have to be positive and try and go at Newcastle from the start, but then also have players in the team who can control the ball, keep it, keep hold of it. And then going forward, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I think Ruben Sellers has given everyone a good chance to prove themselves in the final third. No one's really taken that opportunity aside from probably Theo Walcott and Carlos Alcaraz in recent weeks. So, it's interesting. It depends how Saints go with the game plan, how they line up. But I think in that midfield area, if Prowse is missing, I'd love to see a slightly more attack-minded change. And obviously in goal as well, I think probably keeping Alex McCarthy is probably the safe option for today's game.
Dean, I know you were impressed with the impact Shay Adams and Stuart Armstrong had off the bench on Thursday. Do you think they should be given starts today? And are there any other changes you'd like to see this afternoon?
100%, Kenzie. I would bring Shay Adams back in, definitely. Stuart Armstrong as well. I think they're both needed for their experience to start with, and also the impact and performance they put on in that last 20 minutes against Bournemouth in midweek. And I think it's probably a time for a couple of more changes, if I'm totally honest. I would bring Lianco back into the team. I would put him at right back. I think that might be an unpopular choice in terms of leaving Kyle Walker-Peters out, but I would have potentially just be a little bit more defensive minded and just want the defenders to defend a little bit more. Lianco at right back, Bella Kocha coming back in next to Bednarak. Perro, if he's fit, I would play him at left back. I'm not sure if he is. And then allow the attacking players to attack a little bit more, not have the fullbacks overlapping, so we have that discipline and that structure at the back defensively. I'm very hopeful that James Ward-Prowse can come back into the team because he's so important. So hopefully he's fit, or he's over his illness, or whatever the reason it was, and him and Lavia can play in the centre of midfield. I would play Shay Adams and Theo Walcott up front. So I'll go change the shape and go back to the 4-4-2-2-2 formation. And then I'd bring Sulemana back in, just because he has that unpredictability. He has that raw pace that Newcastle are going to attack Southampton today, and they're going to really be on the front foot. So it will leave situations for Southampton to counter-attack. And we need a player in the team with real pace, real speed, good on one-on-one situations. And he will have a little bit more room today, where it won't be a Newcastle team that are camped in. So there'll be more space on the pitch for him to really express himself. So that's the team I would go for. I would probably keep Alex McCarthy in goal, because that's the decision that Ruben Sellers has made now. It would be silly to bring Bazunu back in. I think you stick with Alex McCarthy. What the reason for that is, he knows himself. But that's a team I would go for today. A little bit more disciplined in defence, and then allow the attacking players to really attack. Because I think if we're going to go out, I'd rather we go out on our shield, to be honest, and just really try and take this Newcastle team. And if we end up losing 4-3, 3-2, I think that's better than just not committing to anything and going down 1-0, 2-0. That would be my structure and my philosophy for today, I think.
Okay, well, today is the fourth time that Southampton have faced Newcastle this season, and Ruben Sellers was asked in his press conference what he learnt from the last time the two sides met, which was a 2-1 defeat for Southampton at St James's Park in the Carabao Cup.
What did you learn from the trip to St James's Park in the Cup?
Well, in that game also we start a little bit slow, and then we conceded 2 quick goals and put us out of the game. And we cannot repeat those same mistakes. We cannot repeat those mistakes to arrive there and be slow in the very beginning, because if we're one of the things that have the Premier League is you are down, it's very difficult to make a comeback. So we need to be ready from the very beginning. We show, especially in the second half of that game, that we can create some damage with some positions and situations that we have, and then we show also that we can be a team that compete against them. So that's what we learned that time, and we need to go for it.
Joe, looking back at that EFL Cup tie then at Newcastle, Southampton conceded 2 goals in the opening 21 minutes, making it 3-0 on aggregate and, of course, essentially ending the contest. How important is it today that Southampton are defensively solid, particularly in the opening stages of the game?
It have to be, Kenzie, to get anything today. They have to just sit in and, like Dean mentioned there, wait for those moments on the counter where Newcastle will... they'll pull forward. We've seen that, scoring 10 goals in their last 2 games. They're absolutely on fire. The crowd at St James's Park will be behind them, but just sloppy defensive errors from Saints against Newcastle in this semi-final second leg, and just switching off and not stopping crosses into the box. And yeah, like you said, the tie was pretty much done and dusted inside the first 20 minutes of the second leg. But Saints did hang in there, and then obviously Shay Adams scored a great goal. I believe it was Adam Armstrong had a brilliant chance in the second half when he went clean through and couldn't convert, and that would have made it very, very interesting with 10 or 15 minutes to go of that game. So Dean mentioned it perfectly there will be opportunities for Southampton on the counter-attack today to score, but they've got to hold solid defensively, and obviously that's not been a strong point all season long, and it's something that they wanted to improve when they came into the season. When Ralph in the pre-season, all the focus was on being better defensively, focusing on tightening up at the back, but hasn't really come to fruition, has it? And I think that hasn't been helped by all the managerial changes, perhaps so many new players, and at times it's, they're playing defensively, and like we mentioned, they lost so many games 1-0 or by tight margins, but it's just almost playing a bit scared sometimes and not willing to go for it. And I think Saints have to just weather the storm when it comes. St James's will be rocking, especially early on, given Newcastle's great position. 7 wins in their last 8 in the Premier League, so they're flying. So they have to just hang in there early on. Dean mentioned there getting more defenders on the pitch, maybe even go to a back 5 and just try and sit in and hold on and then give themselves a foothold in the game. But probably right now, Newcastle is one of the toughest places to go, not only the Premier League, but probably in European football.
Dean, we did speak about Shay just a moment ago, and as Joe said, he scored a fantastic goal in that EFL Cup tie. Can you talk us through that and also his performance from the bench on Thursday night?
Well, his Shay is his best, Steve. Just really instinctive. I think this is Shay when he's playing really, really well. He doesn't think about it. It's one touch. He sets himself, doesn't think about anything else, and just a brilliant half volley. That is such a hard skill to execute, to get the direction on it, to get the pace on it, and to get the accuracy on that is fantastic. And Shay shows that he's very, very capable of goals like this. We talk about it a lot. It's the more simple opportunities, the more simple chances that he gets that he needs to improve on. But he scores some wonderful goals, and his performance on Tuesday night against Bournemouth was excellent. He didn't do anything amazing or really that was outstanding, but he did his job very, very well. He had that opportunity when the ball came into him, he held it up, which allowed other players to come into the game. You see here from the highlights the chance where he just comes into him, he switches play, he runs in behind, he holds the ball up again, he turns out, but look at him here now, he's demanding it again. Give me it again, I'm going to make something happen, I'm going to try and change this game. And he really, really did. So his body strength is good. He wins free kicks. He does the ugly things really, really well. The simple things really well. But he just causes problems. And he always has an effect on the game. That chance there is from him having a willingness to run in behind. He's brave. He's going to beat the keeper there. He's unlucky because if he gets a little bit more direction, he might score. And then his finish as well, his position in play is good. He wants the ball again. And it's a great first touch. And then the finish is good because... again, it's Shay at his best. It's really instinctive. He doesn't have time to think about it. He just swivels and strikes it and scores. So he had a big impact, and hopefully he'll be playing today.
Yeah, hopefully he will be. But he does actually start on the bench, Dean, because the team news is out, and there are 5 changes to the team that lost to Bournemouth 1-0 on Thursday evening. Lianco, Stuart Armstrong, Musa Djinepo and Kamel Dean are amongst those coming in. Armel Bella-Kotchap also returns, and Alex McCarthy remains in goal. James Ward-Prowse is also fit to start the game. So here is the Southampton starting 11 in full. We have Alex McCarthy, Carl Walker-Peters, Jan Bednarek, Armel Bella-Kotchap, Lianco, Musa Gineppo, Romeo Lavia, James Ward-Prowse, Stuart Armstrong, Kamaldeen Sulemana and Charlie Alcaraz. On the substitutes bench is Gavin Bazunu, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Ibrahima Diallo, Duje Shaletta-Sarr, Moy Elianusi, Theo Walcott, Adam Armstrong, Sekou Mara and Shay Adams. Joe, what do you make of the lineup that Ruben has selected here?
Yeah, obviously it looks like it's probably a back four with Walker-Peters at left back and maybe Lianco at right back, it would seem. Great news that Ward-Prowse is back in, obviously the heartbeat of this team. And I think, I like it. Stuart Armstrong's in. Dean mentioned Sulemana's probably perfect for this game, the way that Newcastle plays, and we saw him against Man City cause a lot of problems on the counter-attack of his pace. And against the bigger teams all season long, the teams were right up there at the top of the table. Saints have been really good, had a really good record and been in all of those games. So I like the lineup. I think Shay Adams not starting is probably the only one surprise, but he's going to have a big impact off the bench, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him even at half-time or very early in the second half, depending on how things are going. So yeah, like the lineup, and it's adventurous, but also a little bit of pragmatism there to help them stay in the game for as long as possible.
Yeah, Dean, you did say you wanted to see Shay play today, but he probably will make an impact or certainly come off the bench during the game. Is it just a case of him having not played for a few weeks?
I think so, Steve. I think that can probably be the only reason, because of his performance the other night and how important he is to the team, that maybe just not quite fit enough to play yet, to start the game yet. He has to come off the bench and play 20 or 30 minutes. So the other players that are coming into the team, Gineppo, I think, is a positive approach. He came on and had a real effect against Man City when he set the goal up. Stuart Armstrong coming back into the team is positive. And Sulemana, I think, like I said, he has that pace to cause Newcastle problems, especially in behind. So it'll be interesting to see how the front players line up and what shape we're going to play. Lianco coming at the right back, I think, is a sensible decision. Because you almost have three centre-halves in there. And if Walker-Peters is able to make those forward runs and support the forward players and be that threat that he can, that the three centre-halves can shuffle across and keep that shape. James Ward-Prowse coming back into the team is brilliant because, like I say, such an effective player and an important player for Southampton. So Shay is a disappointment because I would have liked him to play. But he just must not be ready, Steve, to play that full 90 minutes.
Joe, it actually feels like a lifetime ago that we last visited Newcastle in the league. It was, in fact, August 2021 and a 2-2 draw, and there was plenty of late drama in that one.
There was. I mean, you're right. I mean, for Newcastle, Steve Bruce was still in charge then, so it does seem like a very long time ago, and glorious sunshine at St James's at the start of last season. But, you can see, obviously, Newcastle got ahead, and Callum Wilson, poacher's goal, loves to do that. But then Saints were really good in going toe-to-toe with Newcastle in this game. Obviously, good cross in from the left. Elianusi arrived, and he'd been on loan at Celtic at this point and just come back and bagged a goal, and I think he scored a hat-trick at Newport just before that, so he was flying at that time. Then Newcastle, again, dangerous on the counter. A little bit different to how they play now, but St. Maximin, the ball eventually comes to him. Feel really sorry for Ward-Prowse on this one. Tried his best to clear off the line, and then obviously Newcastle and St. Max finished it off. But credit to Saints. Adam Armstrong played in. The local lad late on, got clipped there by Lascelles. Thank goodness for VAR, because that is a stonewall penalty when you see it back. And obviously Prowse did the business and slammed it away to send that little section of Saints fans up in the far corner wild. So overall, memories of that game is that it was a very enjoyable one and a fair point for both teams. So I would take the same today, definitely. But I think obviously Saints need a little bit more. But it's weird to me, Newcastle, when you look back at that starting lineup, a lot of those players are still in the starting lineup today. So it just kind of underlines the great job that Eddie Howe's done to turn their confidence, form, belief, and tactics around in a relatively short period of time. So, Saints over the years, St James's Park has been tough for most teams to go to, but Saints have struggled a little bit. So hopefully they can change that today.
Yes, indeed. Well, Dean, I want to come to you now to talk about Alex McCarthy. Of course, we saw him return to the starting lineup on Thursday. Certainly not to take away from Gavin Bazunu's performances, but do you think it was needed, that more experienced voice at the back?
I'm not too sure, Kenzie, if I'm totally honest. Was it needed? I think Gavin Bazunu was improving and getting better, and he has improved as the season's gone on. We were obviously at the game Tuesday, and you see a lot more of the game live and actually what's happening, a lot more of the detail that's going on. I wouldn't say Alex McCarthy is the loudest person on the pitch or the most dominant person on the pitch. I think what he may bring is a calming influence to the team, especially when you're playing out from the back. He was very calm in possession, and maybe Ruben Sellers, or we've seen from Ruben Sellers, he wants to build up from the back. He wants to play out from the back. He wants to involve the keeper as much as he possibly can to maybe invite the opposition on, so then we can play out and find those spaces a little bit easier in midfield to then play forward. We know Alex McCarthy is a fantastic goalkeeper. He's made some brilliant saves during his time at Southampton. He's a good size. He's a present physically. So there's no questioning that he's a good goalkeeper at all. But I would be really interested to know the reasons why he's come back in and why now, really. Why for the Bournemouth game? Was it because Alex McCarthy is now fit and he's the number one choice? Or whether Gavin Bazunu just needed a break, just to be taken out of the firing line, just to maybe a change that he felt that would help Southampton win the game the other night. So an interesting decision, but both very, very good goalkeepers, both do a good job for the team. So I don't think it weakens the team at all, but does it really strengthen the team? I'm not too sure, but this is what football is. It's about opinions, and Ruben Sellers will have his reasons for doing it. But for me, I think it's a more of a calming influence to that back line, really, more than a really loud vocal player that's really going to dominate the back four.
What do you make of the situation, Joe? And I suppose indeed the season that Gavin's had, because he played every minute in the Premier League up until Thursday night.
Yeah, really hard on him, Steve. Obviously, he's the youngest goalkeeper in the Premier League, so he's almost been learning as he's been going along. And Dean mentioned it there. He's got better throughout the season. But I think if we look back at, he's a good shot stopper. He's getting a lot of reps this season at a very young age. I think the only disappointment for him would be some of the goals recently have come from initial shots that have come in, and he's parried it straight back out into danger. If you look at the equaliser for Arsenal last Friday, it's just those little small margins that we talked about is why Saints aren't converting good performances into wins and maybe drawing games or losing 1-0 or 2-1 throughout the season. So, look, he's had a lot of changes in front of him. I think it's hard for a young goalkeeper, continuity-wise, to build relationships with centre-backs and full-backs if it's changing all the time. Did speak to him recently as well, and very focused individual, very determined. And at such a young age, obviously, he's come in and he hasn't frozen, has he? He hasn't looked out of place in the Premier League, but I think just these small margins in recent games, and something Dean alluded to there, maybe it's just for his best sort of long term to take him out of the team right now and just give Alex McCarthy a chance. And I would love to hear the reasoning, because McCarthy obviously had been on the bench for a long time, but it seems like he would have come back in a lot sooner had his injury issues not been that serious. So I feel a little bit sorry for Gavin. I don't think he's been made the scapegoat, but obviously when you take a goalkeeper out at this stage of the season that's played every single game so far, then you're obviously saying something with that selection. And hopefully, I'm sure we'll react in the right way. But all Saints need is one of the goalkeepers now to step up and have a fine end to the season. And it gives them a chance of achieving what they want to do, which is staying in the Premier League.
All right, well, before we come to you both for your final thoughts ahead of kick-off, we should have a quick word on Southampton's B team. They were, of course, promoted to Premier League 2 Division 1 on Friday. Absolutely fantastic news for them. And some fans have actually been calling to see some of those youngsters featuring in the first team. Dom Ballard and Kamari Doyle are two attacking players that fans have been particularly keen to see. Dean, do you think that throwing those youngsters into circumstances like the ones we find ourselves in now is a little bit difficult, or is that something you'd be keen to see?
Both, if I'm honest, Kenzie. I think it's a difficult situation for younger players to come into the team now. I don't think it's quite right in terms of the timing because Southampton are still fighting for survival. But you can't overlook the younger players. The history and the tradition of Southampton is bringing academy players into the first team and giving them opportunities. That is the model of the football club, and I'm very hopeful that that continues. And I understand why the fans are calling for that, because fans of any club love seeing homegrown players in their first team. That's what they thrive off. And it looks like there's some really talented players coming through. So, look, I'm also very much that if you're good enough, you're old enough. So if these players were really, really good enough, I don't think Ruben Sellers would be ignoring them and wouldn't put them in just because of their age. So it's a difficult situation at the moment to come into the first team at the moment where the team is already very young. There's not that many experienced players. It's difficult to bring even younger players in. But if, which we all don't think, all don't want, the club is relegated and there's a couple of games to the end of the season, I think that is a perfect opportunity to introduce some younger players, give them the first team experience, give them the feeling of the Premier League. I think that's really, really important for their development, and also where the club's heading for next year, what they're thinking about next year, whether that's in the Premier League or whether it be in the Championship. Are these younger players going to be part of the first team? Are they going to be part of the future? Or are they going to be part of the now? So these questions need to be asked. But in terms of now or before there's been a decision on where Southampton finished this year, I don't think it's the right time, because the team is so inexperienced at the moment. There's not 9-10 really experienced players that can really help these younger players, because younger players coming into the first team do need help. They really do need support during the performance, during the build-up, during the preparation, and maybe the team just at the moment can't quite give them that.
Okay, gentlemen, well, it is time for those score predictions. Joe, will come to you first. Southampton know the task at hand. How do you see it unfolding today?
Like I said earlier, Steve, one of the toughest games you're going to have in world football right now. Go to St James's Park, it's fired up. They're chasing Champions League qualifications, so very tough task. But I don't know. Everyone I speak to and around the press box, my role of NBC, are like, when they know I'm a Saints fan, they're just like, what a strange team. They always seem to play well against the teams at the top of the table, and I feel the same, and I kind of think they're going to get something today. I was going to say a draw, but at this point, they need something special. They need a miracle. And I think 2-1 win to Southampton. I think James Ward-Prowse is going to come up with some magic today. He's done it at St James's in the past. The thing they need to do, obviously, they've kept the fewest clean sheets in the Football League this season, just 4. So they can be somehow solid defensively. I think they'll get chances on the counter because Newcastle will push forward and take opportunities. So I'm going for a 2-1 win to Southampton.
Okey-doke. Well, Dean, Joe believes in miracles, but we do know that Southampton do have a track record of getting something at the bigger teams in this division. How do you see it going down today?
I'm with Joe. I'm hopeful. I think we have to be hopeful. Hopeful that the team are going to produce something special today. They're going to have to put in a brilliant defensive performance because this Newcastle team are flying high at the moment, full of confidence, winning games, scoring goals. So it needs a real team performance today. But with Gineppo in the team, with Suleiman in the team, they can produce something special out of nothing. And I'm hopeful that they can do it today. So I'm going to go for a I was going to say 2-1, but I'll go for a 1-0 Southampton win.
All right, Dean, Joe, thanks ever so much for your thoughts and company. As always, Joe, we'll let you settle into a nice sports bar somewhere. I'm sure you'll have a nice pizza or something in hand throughout the match. Of course, Dean and Joe will be back with us for the final whistle. Kickoff is at 2 p.m. and we look forward to seeing you after the game. Bye for now.
See you soon.